I would be remiss if I didn't ask about robots, because you and your daughters, on the side of everything else you're doing, you start building robots to the point that they're being used around the world. And President Obama made a speech in which he said you're a shining example of the American entrepreneurial spirit. And this is your side hustle, right? In 2014?
Yes. So I'll tell you how that started. So again, when Camille, it was about the same time we started writing together. Camille was about 10 or 11, and she used to take things apart in the house, and things like remote controls and toasters and CD players and so on. She would just get a screwdriver and take them apart and bring them to me in pieces and say, "What's this bit do, Dad? What's this thing do? What's this little thing down here?" And I would try to answer her questions the best I could, but I just started started Googling a lot to try to answer her questions, and eventually said, "You know, Camille, it's awesome that you're curious about this stuff, but instead of taking everything apart, you know, we could actually build something." And you know, I was thinking about some little small thing, and she said, "I want to build a robot." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't know how to build a robot, but maybe we can figure that out." So we started watching YouTube videos and going to tech websites. We learned how to solder. We learned how to hook up wires. We started working with microcontrollers, and then her sister joined in too. And we started making functional electronic projects and robots together in our garage. And we wanted to share it with their cousins that lived in a different state. And so we started putting videos on a little website to show what our robots could do. And one day we were watching a documentary on the Mars rover on Spirit and Opportunity. And both my daughters just immediately said, "Dad, we have to build that robot right there. We must build one of those." And so I took a breath and said, "Okay, well, I don't really know how to build a Mars rover, but let's see what we can figure out." So we just taught ourselves through the infinite knowledge of the internet how to do all the different things, motors and wiring and soldering, and eventually we started getting into machining metal so that we could make our own custom metal parts. We started doing 3D printing, all sorts of different things. The only thing I could bring to the table was the software background that I had, and so that really helped. But we learned the software language that you use called Arduino, which is a microcontroller language. And one day we got a phone call from the New York Hall of Science, which is the premier science, hands-on science museum in New York City. And they said, we have a big Mars exhibit, but our little robot is sort of pathetic and it's broken. Can you fix it? And we said, "Oh, well, I don't know, but send us some pictures." And we looked at it and we said, "Well, we don't want to fix that one, but how about we build you a new one?" And they said, "That's really why we were calling. That other part was just to trick you into it." And so they said, "We'd like to hire you, you know, your daughters and yourself, to build us a Mars rover for our exhibit." So if you go to that was years ago, and if you go to the New York Hall of Science today in New York City, and you go to their Mars exhibit, there's 2 fully functional Mars rovers that look like Spirit and Opportunity. And they have sensors on them and cameras, and you can drive them around and go explore their little Mars exhibit looking for signs of life. And they are, in honor of who built them, those robots are called Camille and Genevieve. And so after that, then we were on Fox News and Good Morning America, and then science museums all over the world started contracting us to build robots for them. And then President Obama heard about this and invited us to the White House and gave a big speech where he talked about the girls and how they're the spirit of entrepreneurialism in America, and talked about the maker movement and so on. And it was really cool. So that's a very brief history of our work in robotics. So it started out just as a father-daughter quality time kind of thing, but very rapidly turned into a full-fledged company, which now none of us have enough time to actually operate. So we've had to sort of suppress it and keep it from growing, because I want to be writing books, and Camille is now in engineering school at Columbia. And so she's very busy doing that, and Genevieve's very busy. So we've had to sort of suppress the robotics company to keep it manageable for ourselves.
They must grow up with this idea that there isn't anything that they can't do, and why wouldn't they think that there isn't anything that you?
That's right, and that was my goal, right? That was what I was trying to do, was just to say you can do anything you can imagine doing.
So is there a chance you think that we might see a Robert Beatty robot or sci-fi adventure novel at some point?
I would like to write such a novel. I also like steampunk a lot, but I'm not sure the world's ready for that. I'm not sure that's what people want to read, but maybe you'll get comments that it is what they want to read. I'm not sure. So
I suspect that if you wrote it, they would be very interested.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
I mean, this seems to be kind of a theme, and I've got about 2 more questions for you here, and
okay.
But this is a cheat question, because it seems like this recurring theme that you get a little bit interested in something, and then a lot interested in something, and then it's just a side project, but then you're chairman of the board.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of what side hustles you might pursue while writing books in the future? Or is it just something strikes your interest and we're off to the races?
Okay, first of all, there's no randomness to it. So it's not that I bump into something and then it just takes me and I go with it. It's much more deliberate than that, and it's much more conscious than that. So, for example, the robotics thing, I told you how Camille started with it, and I was thinking, okay, do I want to spend my time doing this? And do I want my daughters to be doing this? And I thought about it and said, yeah, this would be really fun for us to work on it together, because we would be excited about it and we'd be able to work together, and let's see where it takes us. And then as we go farther with it, and it's like, do we want to build robots for museums? Do we want to go to the White House? All that stuff is does it seem like a good path for us and for me and for my daughters? And that's why we would pursue it. And so there's no haphazardness or randomness to it. It is deliberate, because I thought this is a great way for my daughters and I to bond and get closer together, but it's also good for their minds and their sense of. The main thing I wanted to show them was, okay, I was the CEO of an internet software company, but I did not know how to build a robot. I did not know how to solder. I did not know how to wire microcontrollers. I did not know how to machine parts on a lathe or a mill. But with YouTube, we figured it out. Okay. In other words, with YouTube and the internet in general, it's the entirety of human knowledge is there, and you can go for it and teach yourself whatever you want to learn about. And that's really the lesson I wanted them to learn, was that they have this huge resource out there, and that makes them almost all powerful, meaning they can see what they want to do and go after it and achieve that dream. And so that was a very deliberate choice on my part, that I thought, okay, this is going to be a good path for the girls to go on. Now, one of them ended up, I did not tell them, you must go into engineering or something like that. I don't do that. But one of them did go into engineering. I, in fact, just out of responsibility, tried to persuade her not to. I said, well, what about all the other things you like? You're a really good writer. Maybe you could be a writer. I purposely played devil's advocate to see if I could convince her not to be an engineer. And she wasn't having it. Camille wanted to be an engineer more than anything else. And that's what she is today. And then Genevieve went what to some people is the opposite, but in my family, is just a different branch of the same thing. She went to art school and is studying to be a designer and an artist. So they seem the opposite, but again, in my family, they are related subjects.